So I'm talking to Steve Wozniak, who is sort of legendary. He's been invented one of the first personal computers, and
I always believed that work should involve fun, and to me, fun had anything having to do with computers, electronics, you name it. That was fun.
You're an electronics
That's my
guy
game.
by
but,
nature.
But
Yeah.
look at most of us adults. We get our smartphones and we get all these apps for free, and they're fun to show off and play with.
Yep.
I pay $100 for my kid to throw darts to get bigger and bigger stuffed dolls at the county fair, and we get the fun life now for ours. So,
Well, electronics has almost made it so easy to make stuff that we can give it away.
it's hard to believe. It's hard
Yes.
to believe how Moore's Law took us, and yet you could have been predicted ahead of time, but you can never really look ahead that many years to see that what kind of huge computer we'd have in our hands that could do so much, and they're getting closer and closer to being a person someday.
Indeed.
I really, really hope
So
for
you
that.
buy the idea of the singularity or things becoming
I
conscious?
did not. I totally ignored it at first because as
Yeah.
fast as you make a computer,
Yeah.
it cannot solve a problem without a procedure that a man has to think of.
Mm-hmm.
However, I totally got turned around actually speaking with Ray Kurzweil and realizing that his methodology of making predictions is accurate, and you never see it until it happens. You just don't see things for the longest time. Ask RIM or Nokia. And then when it hits, you see it all of a sudden. And that I really came to believe in singularity, and that computers will be conscious, and we're talking to our computers like they're friends. Sure, it's only looking for a few keywords right now,
Sure.
but we got Watson, playing a game on TV. I think eventually that's going to be real. And it's scary what the implications are.
It is.
I don't think of that, but I think my best friend's going to be my cell phone, and I'm just going to, because it's going to know my heart and soul better than any person does.
Well, it sure could, because it'll be paying attention to everything you do.
Yes, and not only that, as we're walking along, it'll point out there, hey, there's that camera you wanted to buy, and oh, there's a pretty girl over there.
So I saw this, actually got an email, and I think it was a serious engineering journal, but it was called Lovotics. And it was actually it was actually a session. They were trying to organize a conference on love and friendship between man and machine.
Well, we already have a lot of that, because look how many people just can't be separated. The most important thing they have in their life is kind of their cell phone. It's not even their car. And it's so hard to say where that came from. And it really came from this whole mobile revolution of being connected to everyone and everything all the time. And the information of the world is what makes the apps work. And we just had a session where they described, how the apps, one of the descriptions was, the apps have changed our life, our style, our choices, how we live. And it was totally unexpected, really, how far that would go, apps connected to the internet.
Well, we're here at the Storage Visions conference, and we just got done with a couple of interesting keynote talk by SanDisk, and I thought it was a really fascinating session on mobile devices, from ultrabooks to smartphones. What did you get out of those sessions? What was that like?
I got about 7 pages of notes.
Did you?
even though the slides will be on available to us. I don't know. I just got a lot of just little comparisons. I'm pretty up. I keep up with that all the time, reading. None of it was really shocking or surprising to me. But it was really nice the way people phrase things and saw what this technology, what does it relate to in the product quality or in what a user sees and feels. I'm always trying to see that connection. They drew a lot of parallels between amounts of, there were also ideas of amounts of solid state storage versus the hard disk storage. And I was a little bit surprised to see how enduring that the hard disk, the real true hard disk is, and how tiny they're going to get, and they're going to fit still into a lot of our slim products, and that the hybrid drives make an awful lot of sense. Good compromise between cost and performance.
I've often thought that, in many regards, there are trade-offs and balances between different types of storage devices. So there's almost, in many cases, a synergistic effect of using them together versus one replacing the other.
Yes. On the other hand, we have a lot of devices now that are so thin in our cell phones, they've just got to be all NAND flash. And I'm kind of like, I don't care what the cost, I'd rather have my disk be all NAND flash.
For the ruggedness and stuff.
It's a pureness to an electrical engineer versus a mechanical engineer that has to worry about rotating motors and things. So I've always felt a little bit nicer about it.
Sort of aesthetic thing.
But, and different, but it's real obvious. Different categories of products that we have in our lives fit different storage technologies.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what got you eventually interested in storage in the first place? I mean, you've been involved in the first personal computers.
Well, it was probably when I was about 8 or 9 years old, and I read that computers had 5 elements, and they were storage and RAM were 2 of them. You know, and every single thing I ever worked on in my life involved thinking about RAM, how to optimize it, how to have the fewest parts, how to architect it, and also I got into storage in later life. I had never had anything to do with it before, but sure, in Apple, I
heard that you were involved with the floppy drive.
Right, I sat down. I had never ever studied or been close to any disk drive in my life or disk operating system. But if I got that disk drive done in 2 weeks, I would get to come to the Consumer Electronics Show with 3 other Apple people that were going from marketing. And because we didn't even have a plan to make one. I hadn't even thought about it. But I said, I thought up this idea. If I get a floppy disk done in 2 weeks, can I go to Las Vegas? Yes. Oh, man. I didn't know a thing about them, but that was actually helpful. Because as an engineer back in those, it was different type of engineering than nowadays when you plan it out on a chip because it's going to be made in the millions.
Did you guys do variable speed on your floppy? I'm trying to remember if that was
I didn't go for the variable speed. Okay. I kept it at the 1 rotational speed. Okay. Well, we were actually stuck with a part that we bought that we didn't have that control of that motor.
Gotcha.
I didn't want to do that.
Right.
But I did. But my configuration was very unique architecture. Instead of going out over a bus speaking disk language like French or German to that disk, I said, you don't need that. Just cut it out. Speak directly the language of the read and write heads and the stepping motors. And then I was able to write software that made it seek tracks faster than the method that their language would have had, because my host computer, I could write the software on.
And you could test it right away.
Yes, and this is very similar to why the Fusion I/O boards attracted me to the modern NAND flash and the enterprise industry, because theirs worked that way. But I could write software, and instead of going click, 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 track to track, it would go shoo, shoo, shoo.
Wow.
Accelerate halfway there and then decelerate the other half, and it was beautiful. But I could also write software. I thought, if instead of having transitions on the disk of 4 microseconds and 8, what if I allowed 12? Okay, it might be a little issue in the filtering in the electronics, and there was. But by allowing 12, I will get 5 bits of data where I used to get 4. I actually increased the amount of data on the disk by going to that method than over what was just normal and expected.
Now, this is the day, too, when you had very little memory for the operations to store it in, right? So you had to worry about, can I fit what I'm trying to do, all that firmware, essentially, into whatever the device has, right?
Well, actually, not firmware. I built this little card, and it only had 8 chips on it, and the one we delivered, 7 when I got it working. And that little card, I don't know, to make decisions. I remember I had a class at Berkeley in state machines. And a state machine can be done with just basically a little ROM, a little programmed ROM, and a register. State. Tiny, it's like the tiniest microprocessor you could imagine in the world. So I used that because it was 2 little $1 chips. I had no idea that in the end I was going to wind up with something more powerful than these big LSI disk controller chips had.
That's cool.
But no, so that was a fun project, but it was largely by going in blind, not knowing things, and saying, how can I figure out a real optimal solution? And I hit on it. It was a lucky win.
Wow.
There were some parts of it that, you go into a project and think, I'm not going to solve this one part of it. I don't know how to do it.
Right.
And you fail sometimes. This one I succeeded.
That's great. So we're here at the Storage Visions Conference. I'm really pleased to have you here again. Why do you want to come to this conference here?
Believe it or not, I actually like hearing what other people are saying about technology, how they view it, what they're saying is important, knowing little aspects of the details, because I'm around technical people all the time. Half my friends are technical, on the technical side of things. So if you know little facts or way to phrase things, and I even like to pick up little phrases today. I forget what one was. It was the phrase was in the data center, and it was something like some kind of farm. I'm going to go back and look at my notes.
Okay.
Something farm, a server farm. Okay, server farm, that's the new word. Sounds really good.
Well, server farm.
But I like also sharing, oh my gosh, knowing performance levels and costs of things and where they're heading.
Oh, wait, there's the one they talk about bill of materials.
What pushes them.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah,
bill of materials costs.
Yeah, and I really liked comparing the different costs of some of the different storage technologies,
right.
And where they make sense, and sometimes looking for where they overlap or where one makes more sense in a certain case.
Because engineering is always about building something people will actually be able to buy and you can actually build. So you've got to make trade-offs, right?
Yeah. Well, actually, engineering, you generally know you can build something, but you've got to build it at a reasonable price and performance.
Yep.
So, and a lot of this stuff we talked today about also here at the conference, there were presentations about the data center as well as the consumer devices.
Right.
That was such a good mix because the data center, everything's done in the data center, improves the user experience, the responsiveness, how things go quickly, because almost everything you're doing is with apps to the internet. That means the other half of the more of the computation is actually done in the data centers. What I'd like to tell people, I was surprised to hear today though that, oh my gosh, the amount of storage, actual disk bytes, is going to be higher in the consumer products now than it has been in the data centers. That doesn't mean the amount of processing; it means the amount of storage.
It's the amount of stuff.
But I go through this issues of storing a lot of stuff, and we're kind of getting this mode of trying to shrink things down, move to the cloud, and seeing how what are the alternatives and how people are offering that. And learned about a great little device that I had read about, but hadn't really put in my head how it fits into my life. And it was I think it was a Seagate wireless drive.
Oh, that little wireless drive.
And oh my gosh, so I'm like any normal guy. Who says, this could really solve some problems I have.
They've had this for about 2 or 3 years. They've never marketed it right. I've said, this is beautiful. You could really do a lot with this thing.
Well, I like hearing the marketing talk too, because it sounded very good when you hear people that really present things clearly. The communicators on stage have generally been very good at this conference.
Thank you.
Because then, because it makes it understandable. They don't lose you in a lot of jargon. And
I think they did a good job.
It doesn't sound like cover up.
No. A lot of the stuff seems really. This is my impression. I mean, there's always someone trying to sell something. They've got an angle they're coming at, but they're honest. They're trying to put out what it is they think is true.
Yeah, and these people are working in the industry. I mean, I'm really surprised at how good the presentations are. I just sit there listening so intently to every one of them, taking notes.
Well, I'm sorry you can't be here this afternoon because you got some great cloud sessions and content delivery stuff.
I know. I read it, but there's a really there's a special guy. He's a famous baseball player.
Oh, no problem.
He emailed me and he heard I'm going to be at CES. He wants to meet me, so I will.
You go do it. But we do have the presentation stuff, and I've got a guy who's taking notes actually. So you subscribe to my newsletter. So I'm going to put his notes in the newsletter. So he's busy writing down everything, literally.
That newsletter is a big part of my life.
That?
Every article in it just keeps me a little more up to date, which I should be towards Fusion IO stuff. But I'm still behind in this storage industry. I come from a different background, computer architecture. But it's very interesting to see what's going on. I'm not engineering today, but I wish I were.
Thank you very much, Steve. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks. Good job, Tom.
Thank you. Thanks for coming, and thanks for agreeing to have a little chat here.
Yes. All right. And I paid my own way.
And thank you. And have fun at the CES.
Sure.
All right. Take care.